Hi everyone, I'm here today in the Peregrine Cemetery in Hammersmith with my long-term Twitter friend Nathalie Mahieu. And Nathalie is the lady that's been watching the Peregrine Falcons here on Charing Cross Hospital for over 10 years now, Nathalie, is that right?
Yeah, the first falcon arrived in 2009, 2007, so she's been here for 11 and a half years.
And that's Charlie, right?
That's Charlie. That was Charlie. We still don't know.
Yeah.
Yes, and they've been breeding since 2010.
Yeah.
Which was their first attempt in 2010, and then after that, then she was with one first male, and had that first breeding season, and then at the end of that season, that male disappeared, and 1 month later was this new boy, which I call Tom, as in the other male.
Okay.
And
T-O-M.
T-O-M. Yeah. So Tom, and they had a few broods. And then suddenly everything
went wrong, didn't it?
Went
and
wrong.
We talked a lot on Twitter about, is it going to happen this year or is it not? And there was a lot of drama ensued. But we've had a lot of drama again this year, which we'll get to in a second, because Charlie has been usurped from her throne. Isn't that correct?
Yes, last Monday.
Okay.
Monday last week, on the 1st of April, and that's not an April Fool joke.
Oh, there's Tom.
Tom has got some food that he's bringing to her.
Yeah. Oh, look at that. So you can hear them calling. That's her calling to him.
It's courting noises. Probably both of them doing it.
Yeah. And he's been bringing her food since she arrived, and kind of courtship displays with her since.
Yes,
then?
So a few courtship displays, and a lot of mating.
Okay.
But yes, a lot of food. She has been very, very, very well fed.
Good. So going back to, I guess, let's talk about the Charlie and Tom story first. Charlie had a first male for 1 year. Did they raise a brood then?
They did raise a brood of 3 youngsters.
Yeah.
There were 2 females and 1 male.
Yeah. And they fledged successfully?
They fledged successfully after a bit of drama, because the first one actually fell off the ledge.
So in Peregrines, we call the female the falcon and the male the tiercel, right?
Yes, that's correct, because the tiercel is about a third smaller than the falcon. It's
quite noticeable,
common.
Isn't it?
It is quite noticeable with these two. It's actually quite normal in birds of prey.
So then Charlie and Tom had a long romance.
Yes, very, very long romance. So 2011 to last
week. Okay. And they raised a few clutches successfully for the first few years.
Yeah, three clutches successfully.
Yeah.
And then she started. Basically, Peregrines will lay eggs roughly every 2 days.
Yeah.
It's pretty much, you can almost set up your clock on it. And then she laid first egg, and then 2 days and no egg, 3 days, no egg, 4 days, and I think that time it took her 7 days
between
the eggs, and then for the third egg was 5 days, and I think that's the first year we didn't have any hatching. Then we had a year with 1 hatch.
That was PF.
That was actually no, that's not true. That year we had 1 hatch. That was Will.
Okay.
Then the following year we had nothing.
Yeah.
Then we had 3 eggs, same thing, a bit of a weird pattern, but slightly better, and that's the year we had PF. And the following 2 years, nothing. And last year I got the eggs analysed by Nicola Hemmings in Sheffield.
Yeah.
And who's a specialist in bird reproduction and fertility problems. And she said that basically the eggs had not been fertilised. One of them had been just a little bit, but the embryo didn't develop beyond 2 days.
So we haven't actually talked about where they're nesting, which is probably the most remarkable thing. So I think, what happened the first day you saw a peregrine at Charing Cross Hospital? And
the first day?
Yeah.
Well, all I was walking by the street here, going back home, and I suddenly had this peregrine fly over me. I was like, wow, and then banged and went and landed on one of those perches
On the side of the hospital.
on the side of the hospital, and I rushed home, grabbed my camera, and took a few photos and put the word out on. At the time, there was just a mailing list for London birders.
Yeah.
And so,
and then it's taken over your life since.
And then it has totally taken over my life. Because I had been looking at this building, thinking that's perfect for peregrines. I really want peregrines here. I would love to have peregrines, and you know, nothing. And then, and I thought, well, she'll be here. She'll be moving on. So that's why I rushed to, you know, get the photos.
Yeah.
And then the next day she was there, and then there, and until last week.
Right.
Pretty much saw her every day.
So I guess going back to kind of their almost becoming extinct globally due to pesticides and things, they've become a real success story of urban spaces and cities in particular, haven't they?
They have indeed, yes.
Yeah. So their natural history is to breed on kind of cliff sides and remote hills
and quarries.
Quarries as well, yeah.
But until the 60s, basically, which that's an interesting coincidence. We didn't build that many tall buildings.
High-rise,
So there were the occasional church or the occasional cathedral where there's the odd story about peregrines going or peregrines spending a little bit of time. But until the 60s and 70s, when we started building all these, the peregrines
urban
didn't.
Cliff faces,
there was no.
really.
There was no. Not the habitat for them.
Yeah.
Also, I don't know about feral pigeons, which are their favourite food.
Yeah.
How many of those were in cities before? They're
probably
mimicking
their success, really.
Yeah, they possibly also followed the prey. Feral pigeons being.
And that parallels their
abundant.
wild type diet as well, because in the wild they'd be living on cliffs and feeding on rock doves, which are the descendant of a feral pigeon.
Yeah.
So both of the birds became urbanized and more successful. Yeah. And as we got rid of those chemicals, the peregrine bred again
and bounced back. And now there is probably there is a good number of breeding pairs all over the UK. I mean, the BTO did a survey a few years ago which showed that the numbers are kind of stable, but there have been changes in as much as the traditional areas where the peregrines are, or used to be in the uplands and things, they are persecuted.
Yeah.
So those numbers are going down. However, the number of peregrines, urban peregrines, has gone up. Yeah. Partially because there is less persecution here and there is more food with the feral pigeons.
What's their main diet? There's been a few unusual birds, but what's the staple is pigeons, right?
Their staple here is pigeons, feral pigeons, I must add. I've had quite a few words with racing pigeon enthusiasts and breeders.
They're not a big fan of
They're not a big fan.
No.
But the thing is, this fair actually takes very few racing pigeons. So most of their diet is feral pigeons. But they're also very fond of ring-necked parakeets, which is back up on the wall.
Oh, yeah.
Ring-necked parakeets.
Wow, she is big. Yeah. So there are little green invaders.
The little green invaders have definitely something to be careful about. Yeah. And I actually introduced that hashtag Eat Your Greens.
Oh yes.
Yes. Every time
there's
a parakeet. Oh, is he?
He's up.
He's going to show off. Or is he?
He's just doing a circling flight now, is he? Oh, it's amazing to see them in flight like that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is he going back to court with her, maybe?
Yes, he is.
That sort of chucking sound, that chuck, 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 is that her when he comes in?
It might have been him or her, and both of them. So basically now he's just gone inside the nest box.
Yeah.
So he'll be bowing to her, probably dancing like a little maniac.
Hopefully we get to see that on the footage in a little bit. We can match it to the time now, right?
Yeah. And and she will be sitting there. So you might be
She's
there
sitting
for
there
a
watching
minute,
him, saying,
watching
"Go on,
him.
strut your stuff."
Occasionally she will join him. Now, initially she wouldn't. He was trying all he could to get her to join him. Yeah, inside the nest box for courtship display, where they basically
where the magic happens.
Where they bow to each other, and after a few days, she finally joined him, and it almost like he's too scared now. As soon as she comes in, he just runs out and like, oh my goodness, she's so big.
He's got performance anxiety, does he?
And but no, he seems to be okay. They mated 6 times at least yesterday, so I think he's okay with that. With any luck, we'll see that in a few minutes.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And here that is it.
And they're mating normally on the ledge rather than in the box?
At the moment they are. No, they don't mate in the box. That's not possible.
Yeah,
there's not enough room
to flap
for it.
Because he gets up on her back with his talons folded in.
Because otherwise.
And he does a bit of balancing with his wings, doesn't he?
Yeah, and it's a lot of moving of tails together so that their cloaca, touch meat and for the exchange of sperm.
Yeah. And am I right in thinking there's been an egg laid?
There was an egg last night.
Ah, we got here just in time then for the action to start.
Yes, good thing we didn't record yesterday.
Yeah, I know, no eggs yet. So we've got one egg.
Yeah, we have one egg.
So we'd expect her to lay tomorrow night?
Tomorrow night, tomorrow night or early hours of the Sunday morning.
Great.
Yeah.
So after several years of our hopes being dashed and will we have chicks this year, it looks like maybe we could have them again this year.
If the problem is not
with Tom.
Not with Tom, because the first thought when you hear the eggs has not been inseminated, is fertilized, is shooting blanks.
Yeah.
If it was not for the story of her weird egg laying pattern, I would think the same thing. Even though he was fathering chicks before without any issues, but then she was laying eggs.
And then 1 out of 3 hatched, in 2 different years. So it's a bit of a mystery, isn't it? But we'll find out this year, I guess, if it was Charlie's issue or Tom's issue.
In about 40 and a bit days.
40 days.
Yeah.
Okay, exciting times.
Tom has just come out.
Oh, yeah.
He's flying around.
Onto the other corner.
She's not. Yes, is she?
Is he? No. Does he do display flights to her, or
is she getting? It all depends whether she's going to put herself in position.
Oh, he might come in and mate with her.
Yes.
Oh,
here we go. They're going to mate. There you go.
Oh, look! Wow. So they're mating now. She's bowed down and he's all over. Pretty quick. Yeah.
And I had actually not noticed until this year. That little call at the end,
right overhead now.
It's a very noisy affair when they're mating. They're going, and then at the end there's this little
little kind of trailer chuck at the end. It's right over our heads now. Look. So the big question and drama is what happened with Charlie. Tell us what unfolded. Well, you have a few reports of some fighting.
I don't know, but there was basically I was walking back from Hammersmith's Monday early afternoon, and I could see fighting around the ark and that big crane over there.
Crane, yeah.
There were 2 birds, and I was like, oh my goodness. Then I arrived.
Is that, just sorry to interrupt, is that unusual? Because sometimes they will chase off other peregrines.
No, that's not necessarily unusual. There were intruder alerts every day, at least once or twice. They just circle around the hospital.
With other peregrines passing over, or even other birds of prey?
So other birds of prey. Some peregrines would just pass over and they would scream at them and the birds would just pass just keep on going. Occasionally some birds would come close. There was actually a bird a couple of months ago that actually landed on the the ledge. I didn't have time to read the ring of that bird, but it was a Sussex bird. It had a black ring.
Yeah.
So there was intrusion. I actually thought that there was more concerted effort this year and Charlie was a lot more stressed with the intruders than she used to be. So I think maybe it was her, or maybe it was another female that was really trying to get at her. And that's partially why I think she didn't lay eggs yet.
And
she had not laid, because she was a lot more stressed.
And would the resident pair recognise that it's the same bird coming in again and again?
They possibly would. They've got a very good eyesight.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure they can
and she
recognise.
looks different to us, doesn't she? So
yes, I mean, I saw the difference between that bird and Charlie immediately. They really are so different. They are very different in markings, in colours. So I'm pretty sure they can, if it is the same bird coming in, and time after time, they probably would. Yes, and so I arrived back here, and I noticed that there was one peregrine on the wall right by the PTZ camera, being dive bombed by another bird, while Tom was on the corner and just looking. At one point there was actually another bird also, so there were 4 peregrines here, and unfortunately the sun was out there, and it was actually very difficult for me to follow the action and see who was who and taking photos. But I did manage to get a photo of the bird that was by the camera, and when I looked at it, I'm pretty sure that was Charlie that was being dive bombed. Then she went on the ledge and went into the nest box, and that's the last record I have. It was about 2:15 last Monday last week, and then she flew off, and I didn't see her after that. And by the evening I'm like, that's bizarre, Charlie hasn't been here. She didn't come to roost,
and
which she would have
Tom
done.
there?
Tom actually at one point, it was about I think 5 or 6 in the evening, arrived with food in front of the nest box, called, and he was like, stayed for about a minute, was like, where, and then left with it. So then I couldn't tell whether she was elsewhere on the building. It has happened before that I was here. He brought food to the nest ledge. She was perched on the other side and she didn't hear him. He had to go and fly and show her that he had the thing,
and then
go back, and then she followed him. So it could have been a similar situation, but then she didn't come to roost. Something's wrong. And then I logged in the following morning, and there was a bird on the ledge underneath the camera. I switched the camera, I moved the camera, and it probably made the noise. Bzzz. That bird flew off immediately. Charlie was used to the noise and wouldn't have moved. I thought, nah, that's
a new bird.
That's not normal. It could still be,
but just
different.
Your suspicion was raised.
So I went out with my binoculars, and I found a bird perched on the corner. Got my binoculars, my camera, and I knew from the facial markings that it was not Charlie. And then I had photo of her legs, and same thing.
No blue ring.
There was no. It's green. It was
green,
a light green,
Yeah.
and the metal ring was on the other side. So that definitely was not Charlie. And then little by little, that bird became a little bit more confident on the ledge, and I got better view of her, and it definitely wasn't Charlie. And one thing I could see is that she still actually has a lot of blood on the feathers on her right leg. So she probably was injured in that fight. And the other thing she has...
The fight with Charlie, you think?
The fight with Charlie, And the other thing, she has a little nick in the eyelid membrane.
I saw that. Her eye looks a little bit swollen and kind of closed over, doesn't it?
Yeah, it gives her a really weird look. So that possibly was also an injury she sustained in the fight. So I dread to think how Charlie came out of it.
Could they? Has it been known that they would kill each other in a fight like that?
It is known that they can kill each other. That has happened. It's also just as likely that Charlie has, was maybe injured, but not that much injured, and is just departed, and could be not far from here, because there have been some really, really nasty fights since with some intruders. And occasionally with both Tom and the new girl, going at the bird,
At another bird.
at another bird. And either it is because they know it's Charlie, they really don't want her back, or it's because they're a new pairing and they're
And they're defending it,
hormones,
really.
their hormones and their whatever is very pumped up, and they just don't want anyone to interfere with their new bonding.
And so people with quite an attachment to Charlie and Tom might say that, you know, Tom's a bit of a traitor and that he's changed or turned his affinity very quickly to the new woman.
That is definitely very, very quick. Yes, didn't even last 24 hours.
No. Brought in the next pigeon and said, oh, you'll do, right?
Yes, and that's basically because peregrines, even though they're mating for life, it's mating for the life of the mate, the bond of the bond.
Yeah.
But they're more bonded to their nest site than they are to their mate.
Yeah.
So they will defend their nest site much more than they will defend their mate. It's actually known that if a nest disappears and the pair has to move, it more often than not they will actually separate and will try and find another.
The bond is reliant on the site as well, isn't it? Yeah. So what does the future hold for we can still call them Fab Peregrines because they're still in Fulham and Barnes.
That is the,
but it begs the question, what is new girl going to be called?
She's now been called Flame.
Flame.
So Tom and Flame.
Yeah, why Flame?
Well, initially I was thinking of all sorts of names, and I was looking at names of deities related to fertility, and I used for a few names.
Thinking,
wishful thinking. And so I put a post on Facebook and on Twitter, and I say, what do you think? And suggested a few other things as well. And then someone said that, well, to go in the same vein as the Fabs and Fulham, and because you had named Charlie after Charing Cross Hospital, even in a loose way, why not try and find the Hammersmith and Fulham connection? And he suggested Hamful. And I'm like, that is a very great idea. However, I'm not too keen on Hamful. Yeah. Yes, maybe she's a handful, but handful that didn't quite sound right. So
it's not
came
befitting
back,
of a lady, is it?
No, it doesn't. And he came back after that and suggested Flame on the Fulham, Hammersmith, Flame.
Yeah.
And I thought actually she's quite a feisty bird.
Yeah.
And she'll re-inject.
She's demonstrated that in her first week, hasn't she?
Yeah, so I thought, Flame is a good name. And I also was trying to find a name that was not necessarily too anthropomorphic. Because I know I had used Charlie and Tom before, but I think it's probably a bit better not to give them name that was too.
They've got a big fan base.
They have a big fan base.
Has anyone reacted very badly to Charlie's departure, or
badly? I don't know, but I know a lot of people very sad.
Yeah.
Yes. And
well, look, hopefully she's
going to calling her the bitch.
Oh,
which
really?
I think is really not fair, because she's only doing
what
wants nature.
A nest too, right?
Yes, exactly. She's just what peregrine nature tells her to do. It's nothing nasty or nothing.
Well, hopefully she brings us some cute chicks this year, and then all will be forgiven, right?
Yeah, and then you'll be back here.
I'll be back for Pledge Watch. More ice cream on a sunny day. Great. Well, thank you so much for meeting me today.
You're welcome.
And I wish the new pair all the best. I'll be watching on Twitter and Facebook. So it's Fab Peregrines on Twitter.
Yeah.
And is it Fab Peregrines on Facebook as well, or Fulham and Barnes Peregrines?
Well, it is Fulham and Barnes, but if you do facebook.com/Fab Peregrines, that's
great.
That's the page.
And a website and a blog too.
Yeah,
we can keep up with all of the video footage of everything that happens.
That's
day
on
by
YouTube.
day.
A lot of the footage is on YouTube. Fab Peregrines.
Great.
So,
Great. So thanks for joining us. Do follow Fab Peregrines on social media and on YouTube. You can catch up with everything that goes on there. I think there's probably a lot more drama to come this year. Who knows what might happen, whether Charlie makes a reappearance. But let's fingers crossed for a successful breeding season at Charing Cross Hospital again. Thank you so much, Nathalie.
You're welcome.
Thank you.